Okay, so it is Wednesday, right? April 2nd. I want to talk a little bit about what I'm now calling Canine Gate, which to me exposes that there is a element of law enforcement within Claremont County that is marginal, that gets passed between departments, that gets discovered with problems like being a tit man like Jim Young, and then just gets passed on to another department twice or multiple times, and that's tend to be in some sort of like little law and anonymous sources circle jerk to try to protect each other and live in their own little world. So before I get into it, I just want to say that I 1,000% support good law enforcement. I think we need more good law enforcement. We need law and order, and we need basically people who are good, solid law enforcement that look with disdain upon these marginal people within law enforcement, people that get their butt hurt because somebody dares to criticize them. And so today, what I'm going to do is this evening, real quick, I'm going to walk through some stuff relating to Canine Gate involving Chris Whitaker, a cop that my opinion, and I think I have the First Amendment right. I don't know, might have to consult with the prosecutor's office and Don Hampton at Goshen Police whether we have First Amendment rights. But I think I have the First Amendment right to be critical of Officer Whitaker. I think Officer Whitaker has every right to be critical of people that have put him in the limelight, and maybe some things that have happened that have allowed him to become part of the limelight. So, with that said, what I'm going to cover is I'm going to talk a little bit about an update on Canine Gate, and predominantly driven by the actions of Goshen Police and the website or the Facebook page Signal 99, which seems to be a circle jerk of secrecy, of secret people that can't stand scrutiny. I'm gonna give an update on that. And then I'm going to talk about Jim Young, and I'm going to talk about Officer Whitaker's involvement with Jim Young. And so everything I've said, I stand behind. I pride myself on facts, not emotional diatribes, not standing in the street arguing with a building, not anonymous hack job Facebook pages. None of that. That's not me. So let me start with what happened that kind of triggered me on this whole canine thing and what was going on. And that was on February 9th, February 14th. I was tangentially aware of this guy that calls himself Hilarious Scales, Lemanuel Scales, or Captain Underpants, as I call him, because he likes to run around in his underpants, who claims to be real news, and lost an argument with the Batavia town village building on, I believe it was February 14th, or March 14th. I'm sorry if I said February, on March 14th. So let's go and play that.
What is going on? It is Hood News 75. We are in Batavia, Ohio, in front of the Village of Batavia building.
So throughout this clip, he gives out false narrative. At first I could immediately tell it was false narrative, but then I investigated. Something he doesn't do. Real MF News Scales doesn't bother to investigate. He also doesn't bother to vote. So let's keep listening.
And I got some shit to say. And if you don't like my cursing, hey, hop off for a little bit because shit about to get real. They have an amazing officer that's been with them for 14 years at the Village of Batavia.
Did he check
named Officer Whitaker.
File?
He is a K9 handler that has had his dog for 4 years. Mind you, there was somebody else that had the dog that moved up and, had more opportunities that had the dog for a previous 4 years, right? The Village of Batavia comes to Officer Whitaker like, hey, we want to give you a raise for 50 cents if you stay with us. Mr. Whitaker was like, hey.
So that's bullshit. Officer Whitaker was looking for another job, got offered a job with Goshen, came back and said he got a job with Goshen. They offered to promote him to corporal and give him $1 an hour raise. That's the truth. Not what this guy says, not what the clown man says, the Captain Underpants man says. But we'll keep going, and then we're gonna, when I really get into it, it's gonna open up with Captain Don Hampton's report in a second.
I think there's better opportunities for me and my dog. I'm a decline this officer. Imagine he's been with them for 14 years. And they said, oh, okay.
So he also forgot to mention that they had a promotion ceremony at a council meeting, and Officer Whitaker got promoted to corporal and then quit. Said in a written statement, we'll see in a second, that he saw some things he didn't like. And as a result, after having gotten another job with Goshen, offered $1 an hour increase and a promotion, goes through a ceremony, accepts the offer, goes through a ceremony to get promoted, then quits, then goes back to Goshen. Okay, that's the truth. That's the truth. I guess real MF News doesn't bother to check on that.
We're going to take your dog that we didn't pay for. We're going to take the dog's cage. We're going to donate the dog's food. We're going to take the money for vet fees and etc. for the dog, and you can have a good time. And then they put it on Batavia's page that they're hiring for a K9 officer because the officer that has been with them forever needed more money to provide for his family or whatever reasons. So y'all try to take his job away from him or whatever reason or whatever y'all trying to do with them, and y'all trying to take his dog, knowing that that would do so much emotional damage to that dog trying to find a new handler. But y'all won't put y'all pride to the fucking side and be like, hey, you know what? The best of luck. You've been with us. You've done everything you can. Y'all have worked tirelessly here. These officers are old.
Remember, this is a guy that got another job, came back, got offered a increase of $1 an hour, went through a promotion ceremony to corporal, and then quit. Okay, so that's the true narrative, not this like unbelievable hardworking guy that got totally shafted by the system.
And not paid enough. Instead of being like, hey, you know what? Hey, congratulations. We'll see you. We hope you have a bright future. They're like, nah, we taking everything from you. Fuck you. And you can't speak about it. But we can. The community.
Okay, so what does he mean can't speak about it? So we'll see in a second. There was a agreement for non-disparagement both ways. But he's apparently Mr. Scales, Captain Underpants here, equates that to fuck you, okay, is having a mutual agreement that you've signed relating to the dog. But we're going to come back to that.
I motherfucking will. I'm going to stand up for my first responders, my law enforcement every time. If they can't say nothing, if they're not going to speak on it, I'm going to speak on it.
Every time. I'm going to speak up for law enforcement and first responders when they're in the right, but I don't just assume that everybody's always in the right. I think law enforcement's like any other job. You got good cops, bad cops, cops that should quit. There's people that should become cops, but just every time, just blindly, Mr. Scales, every time he's going to support whatever cops say. I guess that depends on the cop, though, that he's going to support.
Village of Batavia, fuck y'all. The officers here and the officers all around these areas, y'all do absolutely an amazing job, and I appreciate y'all so much. But this is unacceptable. To take the dog food away and the vet fees and all that for this man, and he been with y'all for 14 years? Fuck y'all.
Okay, so what I did with when I saw that, and then there were some news stories. In the news stories, there was a Michael Gardner that used to be the chief in Batavia and was known for being not the top-notch guy. And then Jim DeCamp was in the story saying it was cruel what the village was doing. These two guys both had, I think, axes to grind. I've talked to Mr. DeCamp since, axes to grind with the village, and they were presenting effectively a false narrative in the press, a false narrative. And so what I want to show first, and flip over here, is just a little timeline of reality, just a little timeline of reality. So Officer Whitaker signed an agreement on March 7th, 2025 for the dog. So there was an agreement to pay $1,500. We'll get to how this came about. But so these other events, there was a council meeting on the 10th of March. That's where Mr. Gardner got out of control and had to be escorted out, making ridiculous claims. When he was there with Officer Whitaker, and they were chitty-chatting. So the agreement's on the 7th, council meeting on the 10th, Mr. Scales acting like a lunatic in the streets on the 14th, and then news stories on the 14th and 15th. So that was the timetable. But this is the agreement. So Whitaker signs an agreement on March 7th. It was ratified by council on March 15th, March 10th in their meeting. So I put some stuff on Facebook when I started to get this information, and I'll show you. This is out of Captain, what's his name? Don Hampton's a report, 30-something page report on me. So I had said this on Facebook. Whitaker has paid the $1,500 he agreed to pay, exposing that the hilarious Scales Signal 99 false narrative, which is true, was a narrative, false narrative. There's an image of the receipt. Several outlets should retract what they said. Hilarious Scales Captain Underpants need to show some respect and correct himself. You know what happened after this? Captain Underpants melted down all weekend in a series of now deleted videos on his Facebook page, ranting and raving about me, calling me all kind of names, so on and so forth. So I put that on Facebook, and then I'm going to go down here in his Don Hampton's report. And this is the basis for his whole report, is that I put a comment on my post that said, I think Goshen Police, Township Police Department will be best without Whitaker. I agree with that. He has disgraced himself by being in league with Signal 99 and not being honest about the events. He is a Brady List candidate. Brady List is not gun stuff. It's a list of cops who cannot testify in court due to prior false testimony or acts that have destroyed their credibility. And I don't think these guys have credibility. I think that's why they work at second-tier police outfits in a lot of cases. These guys aren't going to get jobs at a quality place, okay? In a lot of cases, I'm not meaning to disparage all cops in second-tier law enforcement agencies. I'm just pointing out, and you know it if you're in one of these places, that you have some second-tier guys there. So what happened was, because I had a comment on Facebook, the Goshen Township Police Department opened an internal investigation saying that I had made a complaint. That's funny. I guess if the Enquirer or some newspaper outlet had an article that questioned something about Goshen Police, would that mean that they had made a complaint? But what I did is I took Captain Don Hampton's report and I put some highlighting in it, just so you can see things I want to focus on. So this is how it sorts out. March 18th, Goshen Police Department was tagged in a Facebook social media post by Hicks Watchdog. Hicks Watchdog accuses newly hired police officer Chris Whitaker of being dishonest. Okay, what I accused him of is allowing a false narrative to perpetuate, doing so even in a Batavia meeting with lunatic Michael Gardner, okay, going off when he's there with Whitaker or sitting next to Whitaker chitty-chatting, and Whitaker does nothing to say, hey, everything you're going off about is a false narrative. It's not true. Okay, so that's what I accused Chris Whitaker of, and I stand by that. I stand by that 1,000%. And I want to be very clear: if I omit key parts of narratives in interviews with law enforcement, I'm probably going to get the book thrown at me. If a cop omits or allows to be omitted key parts of a truthful narrative to let it become a false narrative, that person does not belong being a cop, period. End of discussion. And Chris Whitaker, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. But your buddies, go talk to your buddies, Don Hampton and other people that have put you in the limelight. Go talk to Michael Gardner. These people put you in the limelight, and I am going to keep talking about it as long as people like this Signal 99 and so forth want to go out there and anonymously rant about it and anonymously claim that you were totally cleared. You're not cleared of anything. You're not cleared of anything. I'm not a lawyer. If I were a lawyer, I'd love to get you on the stand because I don't think you'd be credible. I don't think you would be credible. And we're going to see that both in this report, in your own words. We're also going to see it in the Jim Young investigation. So anybody who doesn't know, Jim Young is the former chief of Batavia that was a tit man and liked to talk a lot about girls' tits and ass and harass them. So, and it was, I think, effectively looked the other way by people like Chris Whitaker up until the point that they could not look the other way anymore. Okay, so that's how this got started out. So Don Hampton, captain for Goshen Police, does this report, 39 pages. I'm going to hit some of the highlights on that because I had made a comment on Facebook. I wonder how often this happens. I think this happens to a lot of people, or do you think it uniquely happens when your name is Chris Hicks? So let's go down and look at highlights and things. I already showed what I had actually posted. By the way, I put a link to this in a comment to the post for this video for this live stream, so you can go look at it. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to hit a couple points because one of the beauties of this is Chris Whitaker has a statement within this, and I'm going to go through that statement down here. Okay, so Chris Whitaker, Officer Chris Whitaker, is given the chance, I guess, by Don Hampton, crack captain at Goshen Police, to have a written statement. Very unusual. You would think you would do an interview. By the way, I don't think I was ever interviewed. It's kind of funny. If I brought forward an allegation, supposedly, and a complaint, I would think you'd interview me. I don't think I was ever interviewed. I got a few emails asking me dumb questions. And then I said, basically, why don't you check with him and why don't you do a lie detector on him, which didn't happen. So Whitaker has a written statement. This statement is from March 19th. March 19th. So this is, remember, he signs an agreement on March 7th. The council meeting is on March 10th, where this ratified. That's where Mr. Gardner goes off in the meeting and gets escorted out about how this is also wrong to Chris Whitaker, lowly Chris Whitaker. Then and then I guess I make my post on Facebook or make that comment. And so he gets a written response from Whitaker. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk through some key parts of his written response. You can read the whole thing. I put it all online transparently. So that just helps to correct this. So he applies. So the first part of this, he applies at Goshen. It says, after I applied with Goshen, I was informed by acting Chief Warner that I was going to be promoted. So this is the acting chief at Batavia, because remember, they have an acting chief because Jim Young, Titman, had to get axed, and he went to the land of misfits under Mike Freeman and the Owensville Police Department. We'll come back to that. So I was going to be promoted to the position of corporal. Once I received the news, I informed Sergeant Collier that I would like to withdraw my name from the process. So he withdraws from being considered by Goshen. And then on January 27th, he was officially promoted. So he went to they had a ceremony to promote him. Then he quits. Okay. So then he goes back to Goshen. He goes back to Goshen, and in Goshen, he then is asking to retrain the dog Dries. Okay, so let's go forward to the next part I want to highlight. You can go read the whole thing. So he's trying to get a deal on this Dries. He sends it's on February 25th and February 23rd. He's trying to get them to respond on a deal for Dries. Okay. And he says, after a few days of cooling off, because he's mad because they're not responding to him, I sat down with Chip Stewart, who is the assistant administrator, and asked what I needed to do in order to keep Dries. I asked if there was a price in mind that the village had. So he asked, in his own words, he asked how much. So Chris Whitaker asked how much. Chip advised that he would talk to Ken Geist, get back to me. Before hearing back from Chip, I received a call from Jim Young. So Jim Young, who doesn't work at Batavia anymore, is in on this. Why? I don't know. I received a call from Jim Young, and he advised me that he heard Ken Geis was reaching out to other departments selling degrees. I don't know if that's true or not. I also reached out, next highlight part, to Mike Gardner. So Mike Gardner. So you've got it right now. We got Chris Whitaker is interacting on this whole story with Jim Young and Mike Gardner so far. So far. Reached out to Mike Gardner to inquire about the funding of Dries since he was chief at the time. We applied for a grant with the Matt Havercup Foundation. A few days go by. I finally receive a call from Chip Stewart. He advises me the price to buy G's is $2,000. So if I go from these dates, it has to be by this time, the 25th, because there's a lot of the couple days. Don Hampton, I guess, not too good at cop work where you would try to get the days pinned down as best as possible. But you just can, if you ever get arrested by Goshen, instead of being interviewed, just tell them you weren't going to do a written statement like this. I also reach out. So a few days go by. It's probably early, March 2nd, 3rd by this point in time. A few days go by, and I finally receive a call from Stewart. Price is going to be $2,000. I told Chip that was fine. So remember, this is Chris Whitaker on the 19th, after all this stuff is blown up, saying that he told Batavia Village paying $2,000 was fine. And he could I use my unused vacation time to purchase him? And he said that would be fine. So probably like a lot of government employees have shitloads of unused vacation time that they're allowed to take. We don't get that benefit as much in corporate America. I let Nancy, Young, and Gardner know that this was the price, and I agreed to pay it. So we know right now he had an amicable agreement at $2,000, and he tells these people, Gardner, who's going off in a meeting, getting escorted out, that in his own writing, he says he told these people that he agreed to pay it. Jim Young asked about some GoFundMe page. I don't know why he's involved again. Blah, blah, blah. Nancy Havercup was not thrilled. As far as I was concerned, I was happy that I got to keep my partner. So that says amicable agreement. I'm happy. Acting Chief Warner in the following days convinced the mayor to drop the price to $1,500 and include the dog cage that Dries uses. So the acting chief gets the cage included. We're going to come back to the cage, and drops the price, gets the price down another $500. So now he was already happy at $2,000. Okay. Now he's extra happy because now the cage is thrown in and it's $1,500. Remember, if you tuned in late, this is Chris Whitaker's own statement. I'm reading from his own statement. On March 7th, the next part I want to hit, March 7th, I sat down with Mayor Runk and Acting Chief Warner to sign the contract for Dries. Mayor Runk advised me if I wanted to return the dog cage, they would take $500 off the price, and then only be $1,000. So remember, he was happy at $2,000. So think about how different this is than the idiotic Captain Underpants hilarious scales and the idiotic Signal 99 claims about what happened. And this isn't what I said. This isn't what, whoever the hell said. This is what Chris Whitaker said in writing on March 19th in Don Hampton's report that I think was intended to make it that I was a bad guy, but instead ends up blown up in his face by anybody who's got a higher than 100 IQ, because the report itself shows that there was an amicable agreement, that Chris Whitaker was in contact with these people that were spreading a false narrative, and it goes from there. So just talking about the meeting on the 10th, after the contract was signed, Gardner stood up. So this is the Batavia council. By the way, Gardner denies that he had to be taken out of the building. That's what he denied in a comment he made on my Facebook. But this is his friend Chris Whitaker's statement. After the contract was signed, Gardner stood up and had an outburst and was removed from the meeting by Acting Chief Warner and Officer Fletcher. So that is directly opposite what Michael Gardner, I guess I know why I assume this guy's out of law enforcement, probably never should have been in it. Okay. That hothead, and then denies that he went off in a meeting and had to be removed when the Chris Whitaker wrote it in his own summary. I received message from reporters that I have ignored due to the contract as well as department policy. Per the agreement, by the way, he doesn't work there anymore, right? Per the agreement I made with the Village of Batavia, I am not to disparage the village in any way or vice versa. Okay. So we can go have this debate. I think this is fundamentally dishonest because what he is doing is getting people around him, Mike Gardner, people he is in contact with, to be spouting these false narratives that then spread like a virus through people like, at the best case, with spread like a virus into useful idiots like Captain Underpants Hilarious Scales. So think about this. Think about the reality of this is, first off, disparagement doesn't mean telling the truth. Okay. And Chris Whitaker avoids telling the truth. Why? Well, maybe because his buddies are all ripped up here. Maybe because it's a way to potentially get out of having to pay $1,500 or $2,000 or $1,000 or whatever for the dog. But the notion, so whether right, wrong, should it have been $1? Should they have given him a better deal? Whatever. What irks me is this, that you have people who claim to be law enforcement involved in omitting key parts of narratives and allowing false narratives that in themselves are disparaging. So Chris Whitaker could have at any time just told the truth. Just told the truth that he had an amicable agreement. He was happy at 2,000. The chief and mayor got it down to 1,500. Then this cage thing could get down to 1,000. I hope to come back to the cage. Okay. And then he says, one post said that I negotiated a $1 raise to stay. Our policy is corporals get $1 more. Highest paid pro. Okay. So this is, I guess, I guess this would be potentially, I don't know if it was in my thing, but an inaccuracy on my part of who negotiated what. Okay. So whatever. So, to talk about getting stuck on a nit, the key is these people are all spouting that he got a 50 cent an hour raise when he got a $1 an hour raise. And they totally leave out that he had already said he was leaving to go to Goshen. They offered him a thing. They backed out, that he went through a promotion ceremony and then he quit. All that gets lost in the rush to judgment, Michael Gardner and others narratives. Okay. And, then he gets talking about Signal 99. Okay. I did not know who she is. Well, apparently knows that it's a she. She has been going after Batavia Police Department for months now. And I believe this whole situation was just one more thing that she could exploit. Yes, to your benefit, to your benefit, Chris Whitaker. That's what makes you unfit. And I'm sorry, but you should go. You can get mad at me all you want. You can get mad at me all you want. But the reality is that you have been put in the limelight by these people around you that you don't know me, I don't know you. Okay. The people that put you in this by getting you to go, by using you are your buds like Michael Gardner. Okay. And so you end up getting where you become part of this false narrative and it takes on a life of its own. And your buddy Don Hampton here has really helped to immortalize it. And I want to thank you, Don. I want to thank you for getting Chris Whitaker to write out this long statement proving that what I said was 100% true. Okay. That the narrative was false and that Chris Whitaker did nothing to try to make sure the truth was being told when he was directly engaged with people that were parroting a false narrative. Imagine, you cannot have cops like this. You cannot have cops that think it's okay to allow does he allow this in court? Does he allow this with somebody that's being arrested? I'll just leave out the parts that are the truth and I will such that, we can get what we want to have happen. So those are some of the key highlights in here. I want to go down though to there's an interaction between this Signal 99, which everybody tells me that's this woman named Carolyn Adams, which must be a piece of work, that works for UC Health as a dispatcher. I'm glad to have Carolyn deny these things. When I called in her co-workers that were very rude, I called in there, told me that they were aware that she was involved with some Facebook pages. And I think there's a raft of them. But I'm glad to have her deny it. But look at this, Don Hampton. I would say Don Hampton is as bad as Chris Whitaker in terms of credibility. Okay. So look at what happens here. March 20th, I received a response from Signal 99. So I guess on the Signal 99 Facebook page, there is some sort of email address, like anonymous email address on the anonymous page that spreads defamatory false light narratives at will. Because and by the way, never forget, people that operate anonymously do so to hide their ulterior motives, that if their identities were known, they would not have credibility. That's who does false narratives. Okay. Does anonymous stuff. So March 20th. Okay. This is probably this Carolyn Adams responding, but I don't know for certain. We know Chris filed a complaint. I never filed a complaint. What complaint did I file? All of this, a 39-page report, was because of one comment on Facebook. That's scary, by the way. That's scary that that's law enforcement in Claremont County, because somebody made a First Amendment comment on Facebook that I think somebody belonged on the Brady Bunch, Brady list, Brady Bunch, the Brady list. I get victim of a 39-page investigatory report that's posing as that we're looking into Chris Whitaker. So look at what this Signal 99 person says. We know he filed a complaint. Okay. I guess, I guess that's the other rumor is Jay Manning has something to do with this page as well, this Signal 99 thing. We hope that you not only clear Officer Whitaker, we pray you put a good cop to work in your department. A department that I personally consider to be a great department. I don't know how many people. I don't know. I guess Goshen is the greatest department in all of Ohio, probably. I really hope that when you've cleared Officer Whitaker, your disposition is that you've found Mr. Hicks' complaint to be intentionally malicious. Now, remember, I never filed a complaint. I made a First Amendment protected comment that apparently Carolyn Adams and Signal 99 are not good with. Malicious and dishonest in nature. Perhaps then he may find himself facing charges for filing false allegations against a police officer. By the way, if this is Carolyn Adams, she's never been a police officer, I don't think. I think she's just a dispatcher. Nothing against dispatchers, but they're not peace officers, by the way, against a police officer. I would be happy to give you my name and cell phone number if it would help with your administrative investigation. Just please redact my name and number if Chris the Schnoz, because this very mature law enforcement posing person, Carolyn Adams, I think, loves to make fun of me for having a big, beautiful nose, or anyone else requested documents in a public record request. First off, obviously, she doesn't know anything about how public records requests work. Okay, so, or an investigation works. Okay, but here's what the best part is. This is Don Hampton. Don Hampton should be looking for another job. His response in an investigation is, "Thank you for your response. Releasing your personal will not be necessary." Okay. So is he covering for somebody? This is the way it works. Is this, Don, did you ever, I don't know if you learned anything about the Constitution or the right to be confronted by your accusers. Is this the way you do? Do you take anonymous information and hide who the source is of it and then use it in your, is that normal in Goshen? Is it like the Stasi in East Germany? Keep secret files on people, protect certain people that have certain views. This is reprehensible. And whatever his name, I think they're peas in a pod, but the chief in Goshen, he should be ashamed of this. I don't know, he will be. I think it might be normal, this kind of hackery. So that's how he responds to Signal 99. I'm not going to say any names here because I don't, but there are actually some super professional cops in Claremont County, and they would be ashamed of this. Don Hampton, go talk. You can contact me, Don, and I will over the phone tell you some names of some cops you can go talk to that would tell you got to improve your work, bud. This is asinine that you protect the identity of an anonymous smear site operator, that everybody points to Carolyn Adams being the person. Carolyn Adams there's some guy that comes to me claiming he's a private investigator on these guys because they've hacked off some of the wrong people in Hamilton County. The little secret cabal that is the Signal 99. So those are there's one other thing in here, and then I'm going to jump on to Chris Whitaker within the Jim Young situation. So I keep asking, because somebody made a comment on my Facebook that Don Hampton's buds with Jim Young. By the way, there's this kind of tier of what I call damaged police officers that I guess hang together. And maybe they talk about women's tits and stuff like Jim Young likes to do. So I asked him what his relationship with Jim Young. He will never answer. He will never answer. Why are you refusing to answer? So he never answers this. He never answers what his thing is with Jim Young. So he concludes this investigation. Fantastic work. No evidence to support his conjecture. No, there's 100% evidence. Whitaker's statement shows that he knew the people that were parroting the false narrative, like Michael Gardner. He was in contact with them. He had told him about the amicable agreement that he had signed and that the agreement was amicable. That's 100%. That is 100% evidence. I don't know. Maybe you got to go back to evidence school in Goshen to know what evidence is. Whitaker's own statement concurs. The question is I guess what you guys want to say is that Whitaker was right to let a false narrative permeate, knowing it was a false narrative, claiming, oh, I can't say anything because I'm not supposed to disparage Batavia, as if telling the truth would disparage Batavia. I don't think telling the truth would disparage Batavia, Mr. Whitaker. And I would question if I'm not a lawyer, I would just love, maybe I watch a lawyer on TV or something. I just love somebody questioning on the stand, like, do you think it's okay to manipulate narratives by leaving things out? That would be a great question for any lawyer to ask future Chris Whitaker on the stand. Is that normal? And we'll get into the Jim Young thing. We'll get another question for Chris Whitaker could be, is it normal that you don't have that you're totally unobservant of the environment around you and you're confused all the time? We'll get to that in a second. So, I believe that Whitaker was directly complicit in the promulgation of misleading information, of misinformation. He says so. he told Gardner about the agreement. Then he's in the meeting where Gardner goes off into a fit and has to be removed and does nothing, just sits there. I don't know why. Maybe uncertain of himself, and we'll get to that in a second. The thing I love at the very end of this is the involvement of the prosecutor's office, Mark DeCalvi, good friend of mine, and Lisa Barron Allen. I think she wants to be the next prosecutor, and we'll see. But I love that you get the prosecutor's office involved because somebody that never filed a complaint, never did anything other than made a comment on Facebook. Is this normal for Goshen? Anybody makes a comment on Facebook gets subject to an investigation, and that's critical of Goshen, gets subject to an investigation and reviewed with the prosecutor. So that is the report. That is Don Hampton's fantastic report that he should be so proud of. What I want to do now is go talk some about Chris Whitaker's involvement in what happened with Jim Young. Jim Young has had repeated issues through his career with inappropriate behavior and inappropriate activity. It happened in Batavia Village. Unfortunately, he wasn't charged. He was allowed to resign, which this happens too much. And I just want to give you a little background on Jim Young. So Chris Whitaker and Jim Young were colleagues, because Chris Whitaker was an officer and Jim Young was the chief in Batavia. Here's just a couple excerpts from the Channel 9 story that was on what happened with Jim Young in Batavia. And I'm going to tie in Chris Whitaker.
She claims Jim Young harassed her. She says this video shows Young pulling her hair.
He just grabbed me by my ponytail and pulled me in, and I tried to pull away and he pulled me closer. He whispered in my ear, he's like, you need to submit and listen to me. I'm your boss.
By the way, the cop that was sitting right to the right side of the table, that's Olson. He now works in Brown County Sheriff's Office. He claimed that he didn't see what happened when he's sitting there laughing when Jim Young is harassing the waitress. The person on the left side of the table, you briefly see their face when they lean in, but that's Chris Whitaker sitting on the left side of the table when this is going on with this waitress.
What were some of the things he said to you?
Whenever I would wear jeans, he would be like, oh, your figure looks very nice in those jeans. Or if I wore leggings, he would be like, oh, your butt looks very nice in those leggings. He was speaking so sexual about me that I had other tables and other customers come up and apologize to me and complain to my manager about the way he was speaking about me.
In October, the village's mayor outlined allegations against Young to the village council. It included multiple allegations of sexual comments made by Young to others, such as commenting about a pastor's wife's breasts while investigating a death. Young admitted to borrowing thousands of dollars from one of his officers who was promoted around that time. The mayor recommended the village council fire Young, but Young was allowed to resign and will be paid until the end of this month.
It's made me feel unsafe in a place that I've lived at for a long time. And it's made me feel
That's great,
vulnerable
isn't it?
because
But
I feel
law
like I have
enforcement should be
to walk on
proud.
eggshells when I do my job now.
Now, by the way, after that happened, Jim Young ends up in Owensville under Colonel Mike Freeman, the land of misfit cops. And Colonel Mike Freeman claims that he didn't, when I asked him about it, I've always had a good relationship with him, but now I feel like he's lied to me, which means a lot with Mike Freeman since he talks about people lying, if somebody lies to him, but he lied to me. So Mike Freeman hires Jim Young in Owensville after he gets shit canned out of Batavia. He had, I believe, previously been shit canned out of Miami Township, Jim Young had. And then Colonel Mike Freeman tells me that, he doesn't know what's going on because he doesn't follow the news, the local news, okay? And the other thing is he also claimed, I'll just throw this up here real quick. He also claimed, Mike Freeman claimed he had gotten a letter from Batavia Village saying everything was great. Jim Young was totally cleared of any wrongdoing. And this is the letter personnel file. You denied wrongdoing. Imagine if this was in your personnel file, you denied wrongdoing, no admission of wrongdoing, no hearing was conducted, no finding of wrongdoing. And that means to Jim Young, no problem. There's no problem with, to Mike Freeman, there's no problem with Jim Young. I'll have him come work. Then when I talk to him, I'm only having to do paperwork, all this kind of stuff. One of the problems is these marginal cops and bad cops get passed around like this, and they protect each other in a little circle jerk world of living in their own world here. So what I want to do, though, is tie this all together and with Chris Whitaker's behavior and some of the things that happened with Jim Young. Signal 99 has defended Jim Young. They also claim, I guess because of that letter, Jim Young did nothing wrong. Jim Young's great. He's a fantastic cop. Probably, maybe Signal 99 thinks Batavia Village under Jim Young was the best police force in Claremont County. But I'm going to this is the Jim Young report. I also put the link to this in a comment around the post for this video. And it is a 60-page report. It is a high-quality report. Okay, this was done by Lieutenant Scott Blankenship. I told one of the things I'll even say this. Our current sheriff, Chris Stratton, told me that if something happened to somebody in his family, the one cop in Claremont County he'd want investigating it would be Lieutenant Scott Blankenship. That's how good he is at doing this. So he does the thing on Jim Young. There's the thing about the waitress. There's a lot of redaction here. Whitaker's. So just so you know, Whitaker's there. Whitaker is seated to the left of the table. This is the waitress thing. But then we're going to go back here because there are all these things where Jim Young has done these just oafish, things that I work for professional operations like IBM. If you did any of this shit, you'd be fired immediately. Okay. So Chief Young admitted to make comment about the pastor's wife's nice breasts at a death scene. This is the kind of caliber we're talking here. This is the cleared guy. This is the cleared guy, according to Signal 99. Nice breast, okay, in front of Sergeant Olson and Officer Whitaker, okay? This is at a different event, though. Here's another one, so he admitted that one. Whitaker, again, Chief Young commented the size of Officer Whitaker's wife's breast, okay? And Chief Young apologized and he denied doing it, okay? Chief Young bragging that he was so close to a former female Batavia Village police officer that she asked him for help with a boob job. I don't know what happens. How do you help? I don't know nothing about no boob jobs, but she asked him for help. What help did you like to feel them? Financing, picking out what style she wanted. I know it's just so absurd. It's so juvenile. It is so beneath somebody in law enforcement that's a professional, especially at any high level. And then he borrowed a lot. Chief Young borrowed a bunch of money from Sergeant Olson, who then got promoted. Okay, and look at the stuff he borrowed money for. Imagine this is your boss. He borrowed the chief of police borrows $2,400 from a sergeant for tires for his Mustang. Then he borrows $2,000 for a hunting trip. I think I would tell him F the hunting trip. It's like, stay home. So, but apparently it says he paid it back and Olson got promoted. Okay. Now we're going to get down to where it talks about specifically about, if I find it here, hope I find it right here. Okay. About the video. So this is, I guess, whatever, there were a couple cops involved from Union Township. Let's assume this is Blankenship for sake of argument. Loaded the video on a laptop, asked them to watch it. Okay. And there's going to be down here the actual interview with Whitaker. Okay. And so we're up here. I just want to make sure where I'm at here. Oops, I'm jumping around. About pulling the hair. He confirmed that he told the chief to submit to your boss or your daddy. That this is what the waitresses, supposedly Jim Young, said to her while he was pulling her hair: submit to your boss or your daddy, or something similar. And this is Officer Fletcher being asked about this. And so he said, Fletcher's asked, this is why I highlighted this part. I asked Officer Fletcher if he had spoken to Sergeant Olson or Canine Officer Whitaker about the incident since it occurred. He only noted having passed on with Canine Officer Whitaker, who asked him if he knew what was going on. Officer Fletcher described Canine Officer Whitaker as being very inquisitive and believed he was trying to determine what side he needs to land on. This is another good Brady list thing, okay? Is that instead of just the truth, he's trying to, well, is Young going to go down? Or should I try to protect him? Should I throw him under the bus? What should I do? That's a sign of somebody who's not credible, okay? And, and unfortunately, it's in this report directly. Now, let's get down. Let's see if I can find this where Whitaker is being interviewed. Okay, here's Whitaker's interview, okay? Lieutenant Scott Blankenship has the interview. So one of the things that strikes you about this interview is that Whitaker keeps saying he can't remember Young being, after one time, I can't remember any other time he was offensive. Then more times keep coming. Oh, yeah, I remember that. So Officer Whitaker said, yes, we normally go to Frisch's after council meetings. I told Officer Whitaker it's surrounded a female waitress, blah, blah, blah. I asked Whitaker if he knew who I was talking about, and he said yes. And later, did he know, did he observe this? Honestly, I don't know. I don't remember any specific words. I don't remember seeing anything. He's sitting right at the table. Olson's laughing. He's sitting right at the table looking at them. I don't remember seeing anything. I do know that he is very friendly with the waitress. I asked Officer Whitaker what he meant by friendly. Officer Whitaker said he is very flirtatious, very joking about her and her boyfriend. Just very, how do I want to put it? Very, if I were to be honest, in my opinion, kind of unprofessional. Okay, so, kind of unprofessional. So this is Whitaker in an interview. By the way, Don Hampton, this is what you're supposed to do, is an interview, okay? Not a written statement, you do an interview, okay? So you get the spontaneous and you can expand on subjects. They teach, hey, you can watch NYPD Blue and you can learn that. I asked Officer Whitaker what he meant by the chief being unprofessional. Just being the chief of police and flirting with a waitress. Me personally, I don't think that's professional, okay? I asked Officer Whitaker if he recalled the chief pulling her hair. I don't. Okay, doesn't say anything. I didn't. If he played the video, would you remember it then? Probably not. If you showed me a video, I'm not going to deny it. Blah, 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 okay. I asked Officer Whitaker if he had been in other situations where he spoke inappropriately. Officer Whitaker said no. Jim Young never before spoke inappropriately. Chief made a comment. Then it gets into more examples. Chief made a comment. I don't remember exact words, but something about her breast. That's what I remember. Oh, so all of a sudden we remember another one. Okay. By the way, Whitaker and the other cop in this situation, Sergeant Olson, what do? We made a motion to him that our body cameras were on while he's talking about this. I think this is the one at the death scene talking about the pastor's wife's nice rack. Okay. And it's good to know that your cops have hand signals they can give each other to know when the body cams are off, so they know on. So they're kind of just like the criminals, right? That when the body cams are on, we got to behave better. Okay. So if I pop down here, I asked Officer Whitaker if he could remember any more inappropriate comments. Nothing comes to mind. Okay. Then I asked Officer Whitaker if he remembered the comment about his wife being inappropriate. This is when Jim Young was talking about Whitaker's wife's breast. So he doesn't remember Young talking about his own wife's breast. That wasn't one of the things that he remembered. I don't. Yeah, I don't remember the exact comment. I know he commented on her looks, but as far as the comment was about her looks, which in my opinion, any comment about my wife's look is inappropriate. He just said right before his interview he didn't know any other inappropriate. He does this over and over again. I don't know anything else inappropriate. No more. And it just, it's like, what did you do about it? But he's chief of police. What do you do? Just let her. So if chief of police says hide evidence, what do you do? Just let it roll off your back. If chief of police says lock them up, what do you do? Just let it roll off your back. Okay. Chief of police says keep your mouth shut about A, B, and C. What do you do? Let it roll off your back. Okay. Officer Whitaker, if you hear this, you probably will. Straighten up your act. Be a man. Say, here's what I do as a law enforcement officer. I tell the effing truth. I tell the truth. If I become aware of a false narrative or somebody not telling the truth, I correct it. I do that every time. I'm a man of character. That's what a man of character does, is tell the truth. So I think those are the key things in here in that long report and that is a 60-page report on Jim Young. So let's do kind of the roundup of these people. Okay, you got in your Owensville land, you got Mike Freeman, Jim Young, guy named Jay Manning, who's been insinuated as involved with Signal 99 in a couple of different ways. And then, by the way, there's another cop from Bethel named Mike Reski that I got told this is another. I don't know, Mr. Reski. But I do know that it shows in the records that he worked for one day in Owensville, where it just seems like a lot of cops end up in Owensville that probably can't get jobs other places right at that point in time. You got Michael Gardner, the ex-chief of police in Batavia, going off in a meeting, denying on my Facebook that he ever got taken out of a meeting, but Whitaker putting in writing that he had to get taken out of the meeting, while Whitaker didn't correct him. You got Don Hampton in his all-star report. You've got Carolyn Adams, who's allegedly the Signal 99 madam, and you got Don Hampton protecting her from exposure of who actually is behind Signal 99. By the way, if you're in law enforcement and you hold court with any of these people that do these anonymous sites, just think about this. If Carolyn Adams can't say the stuff that she says on Signal 99 under her own name, then what does that say about Carolyn Adams? Because probably University Health would fire her if she did this under her own name. And because it's a lot of misleading, deceptive, emotional, mocking, belittling, false narrative, and false light crap. That's what Signal 99 is. And people should disavow. I know I will always 100% disavow any Facebook page that basically operates in an anonymous fashion. Frankly, I think people's names should be on each one, or that should be clear who's running it. We've mentioned Lemanuel Scales, Captain Underpants, who I think was probably let's go with that he was just a useful idiot, and his real MF News doesn't bother to do any checking. You got Laura Barron in the prosecutor's office, and Jim DeCamp. The only person out of all these that actually on the phone reached out to me to talk, there's two. Jim Young talked to me, and Jim DeCamp about the dog, and we had I don't know that we had a pleasant conversation, but I appreciated talking to him. And hopefully a lesson from all this is that people, if you're going to be in law enforcement, be respectable. In it doesn't matter. Maybe there's different reasons you'd work at different departments. Could be because you have affinity for the community. But this passing around bad cops or questionable cops or marginal cops, that is not good. That is not good for the quality cops to see that going on. It is not good that people like Jim Young are in law enforcement at all, at this point in their career. It is in these things like these anonymous hack sites and stuff like this. All of it's bad. So I want to thank, as I conclude here, I want to thank Don Hampton for your fantastic report that I believe confirmed everything that I said, that Chris Whitaker, and if you look at the Jim Young report, he has a pattern of basically telling the story that he thinks he needs to tell, keeping his mouth shut when he needs to perpetuate a false narrative or to play it out. Whether you see it here in this case, where he sits in a meeting with Michael Gardner, who's going off and does nothing to stand up as people are telling this false tale, or you look back at the Jim Young thing, where he seems like he's trying to figure out what he should do instead of just being forthcoming with the truth. And he repeatedly, no, I never saw anything inappropriate. But then when confronted with more and more inappropriate stuff, oh, yeah, I remember that one. I remember that one. I remember that one. That's not a good way to be if you're in law enforcement. You need to be precise. You need to be clear. You need to be of high character. And you need to be a person that even whoever it involves, your best friend, your worst enemy, you stick to the truth. You stick to the truth. Hopefully this rundown has been helpful. And I'm going to keep running stuff down. These people all say that I'm irrelevant, so it doesn't really matter, right? That I give rundowns on stuff. But I'm not going to sit by and let this kind of crap go on. And people in these communities need to know this kind of juvenile shit that goes on with some of these cops or law enforcement, especially when they pass misfit kid cops around. So let's end with the narrative. The truth. Well, the truth is that Chris Whitaker was going to go to Goshen, ends up not going to Goshen, gets promoted in a ceremony at Batavia Village, then quits, then wants the dog, negotiates an agreement where he's happy with to get the dog for $2,000 using his vacation pay. That gets changed by the chief and mayor in Batavia Village to be $1,500. Then that gets changed to be potentially $1,000 without the cage, and then and then all this hell breaks loose that somehow they were just trying to screw him and just totally mistreating Chris Whitaker all the way. When I'm sure it's never happy when you're leaving a place, but there's a big difference between normal leaving a place and people trying to accommodate you, and that they were somehow just trying to F you completely. And on one last point, there was some dispute about the cage and whether the cage was loaned or not, and with Jim DeCamp. And it is true that the truth is that it could have get lost in the shuffle. I talked to Jim DeCamp because the cage he had done under the prior officer, and they might have lost record, and the prior chief, that it was supposedly a loan, and Jim DeCamp had no paperwork saying it was a loan. But then he came out of the woodwork saying both that it was cruel what they were doing to Chris Whitaker and that the cage had been a loan and they couldn't. So I'd say, go get your cage back then, Jim, and they'll reduce take $500 off the price of the dog, and then everybody can be squared away. So I left that part out, and I just wanted to hit back on that and some clarity on that as well. All right. I think I've hit everything I can remember to hit and walk through the reports. I'd encourage you to read the whole reports and just look at also the difference between a high caliber report like the one done by Blankenship from Union Township and a hatchet job done by somebody like Don Hampton in Goshen who tells the defamatory Signal 99, oh, we don't need to know your information. Thanks. Have a good rest of the evening. And in 2 minutes, I'll move back on talk.